All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. We've got about a month left to go in this NFL regular season, as there are plenty of teams who have their eyes on making the postseason. There are also some disappointing teams who already have an eye towards 2024. Now, some of these clubs have already fired their head coach, while several others could be making a head coaching change at season's end. You look at the teams that have already fired their head coach, and they're going to be looking for a new head coach in the offseason. You look at the Carolina Panthers for starters. The next head coach that the Panthers will hire will be the seventh since David Tepper became the owner back in 2018. Now, I don't know who the next head coach of the Panthers is going to be, but that person must find a way to make things work with rookie quarterback Bryce Young. You think about it. I mean, the Panthers paid a hefty price to draft Young this past April. They traded up several spots in the NFL draft to have the first overall pick. They traded up to number one with the Chicago Bears, and in doing so, they also gave up their first round pick for 2024, which is more and more looking like it's going to be the top pick in the draft. So whoever comes in, they're not going to have the luxury of having a first round pick, and they're also taking over a very bad football team, and they've got to go out there and make this work with this young man who a lot of people are saying is not big enough to play in the National Football League. Then you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders, they must lead the world in interim head coaches. And I say this because they've had 12 different head coaches since they last went to the Super Bowl at the end of the 2002 season. And that's a big reason why, over that stretch, the Raiders have only had one winning season and one playoff appearance. And all of these coaches that the Raiders have employed since then, four of them have been fired mid-season. So that just gives you an idea of the mismanagement and the fact that the Raiders have simply just become an albatross in the National Football League. Now, this year, Antonio Pierce replaced Josh McDaniels, who was fired after the Raiders' 3-5 start. And under Pierce, the Raiders are 3-3, which includes them putting up a franchise best 63 points this past Thursday in a win over the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, Raiders team owner Mark Davis missed the mark, no pun intended, a couple of years ago after he decided not to retain Rich Bisaccia, who replaced John Gruden. And of course, that was a tough year for the Raiders. Mark Davis moved on from John Gruden. This team rallied around Rich Bisaccia, and they got to the playoffs, and they were within a whisker of beating the Bengals in the wild card round and advancing. And, it was one of those where Mark Davis thought with his heart and not his head. Mark Davis wanted to go out there and make a splash with his next head coach hire, as opposed to, just using his head and going with the guy who won games for you, going with the guy who your team rallied around, go with the guy that your team went to bat for. No, he went with Josh McDaniels. And of course, the Raiders have become a train wreck ever since then. So it's really going to be interesting to see which direction that the Raiders go in. But again, since firing McDaniels, the Raiders have played hard under Antonio Pearson. You have to wonder that, along with the fact that Mark Davis probably realizes about now that he made a mistake in not sticking with Rich Bisaccia, that he's going to give Pierce an opportunity to be his next head coach. We got to wait and see. Then you've got the Los Angeles Chargers, and I talked about this yesterday. This was a move that Dean Spanos needed to make last January, but he's finally moved on from Brandon Staley as his head coach, and then also Tom Telesco as the general manager. Now, you look at this Chargers team, they've got plenty of talent, but they've got some huge cap numbers on the defensive side of the ball. There's plenty to build with still in LA because you got Justin Herbert. but it's just a matter of finding the right head coach and general manager that's going to be able to harness it and bring it all together. We got to wait and see. Then there are some teams who could also be moving on from their head coach. You look at the New England Patriots, and of course, 5 years ago, this would have been unfathomable. But you know what? It's the nature of the beast. The writing is on the wall. The Patriots team owner, Robert Kraft, could be ready to move on from Bill Belichick as his head coach. And if Kraft were to do that, then the New England Patriots could also be in the market for a new general manager as well, because basically Belichick is the de facto GM there. Then you've got the Washington Commanders. The Commanders have a new ownership group in place, and they didn't inherit anyone within this organization, anybody in the front office, players and coaches alike. And right now, we're talking about a Commanders team that's going to take the field tomorrow against the Los Angeles Rams. And the Commanders have a record of 4-9. We've already seen them fire defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. And clearly, they have themselves another losing season on their hands. And honestly, at the end of the day, all signs point to Ron Rivera, the Commanders head coach, getting his walking papers at the end of this year as well. Now, the biggest question for me in regards to Washington: how much of an organizational overhaul are we going to see? That's going to be the $1 million question. Because, like I said, new ownership group really didn't inherit anybody here. So I think they're definitely going to go new head coach, possibly new general manager, and just start from the ground up. We've got to wait and see. And finally, we got the Chicago Bears. And it looked like the Bears were stumbling towards a top five pick after their 2-7 start. But Chicago has shown some life. They've won three out of their last four. They still have an outside shot to make the playoffs. We got to wait and see. A lot of things could happen in the NFC. And under head coach Matt Eberflus, the Bears are 8-22. But you have to wonder if a strong finish is going to be enough for him to keep his job there. Remember, it's just his second year. Also, another question: will Dan Quinn get another chance to be a head coach in the National Football League? Of course, Quinn did enjoy success as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He's currently the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. And this is a team that some people feel could do some damage in the postseason. And you got to love the way that the Cowboys are flying around the football defensively. Just makes you wonder. So it's going to be interesting to see also what will some of these owners be looking for in a new head coaching hire. I think we could see a trend with some offensive minded coaches here. The reason why I say that, you've got a big time player in LA with Justin Herbert. He's already established as the franchise quarterback. You want to keep him happy, but then also you want to have somebody who can help elevate his game to the next level. Like I talked about with the Panthers, this person has to be able to get things right for Bryce Young, and not only get things right for Bryce Young, get things right around Bryce Young. So I think it's going to be an offensive minded head coach, at least in those two scenarios there. What job to me is going to be the most intriguing out of all of these? Right now, of the three jobs that are open, I'm not going to say any of them as of right now. I think the more intriguing possibilities could come from the teams that could potentially fire their head coaches. And I'm going to go 1A and 1B in this. I look at New England, and for the sake of argument, a lot of people expect Robert Kraft to move on from Bill Belichick. The Patriots are going to have a top five pick, and they're more than likely going to use that on a quarterback. Also, on top of that, if the Patriots do decide to move on from Bill Belichick and another team wants his services for 2024, guess what? He's still under contract to New England. So that means you're going to have to compensate Robert Kraft. We just saw the Denver Broncos give up a first round pick for Sean Payton to be their head coach. We can't imagine what it's going to be as far as taking on Bill Belichick, because more than likely Bill Belichick's coming as the head coach, and Bill Belichick is also going to have some type of say in personnel decisions. How much of a say that he's going to have, I don't know, but it's going to be a substantial one. So you're going to have to compensate the Patriots. My point is, you're probably looking at two first round picks there. You're also looking at a new GM to work with, and you're also looking at bringing in a franchise quarterback early on, whether that be a Caleb Williams or Drake May. So then on top of that, you have an owner in Robert Kraft who is committed to winning. I mean, what we've seen from the Patriots in the last couple of years, this is foreign territory to Robert Kraft. And I'm talking about pre Tom Brady. Robert Kraft, on his watch as a Patriots owner, did win an AFC championship prior to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. So I think that's an intriguing job. I think Washington is an intriguing job as well because, again, you're building from the ground up a new ownership group and you have an opportunity to really build this roster within your own image. And you're probably going to have an early pick in April's draft. And then the Bears, if the Bears decide to move on from Eberflus, you've got the first overall pick. You're also probably going to have a top 10 pick of your own. Do you trade that pick and build up more assets, or do you use that pick to get yourself a new quarterback, or are you going to be committed to Justin Fields? So there's a lot of different ways that the Bears can go in, and I think because of that, that makes that opportunity very intriguing. It's unfortunate that this is the nature of the business in the National Football League, but it's a results-driven business, just like so many others are. And to quote the late great Bum Phillips, there's two types of coaches: them that's been fired and them that's gonna be fired. And that's just the way it is. And we know every single year that head coaches, you know, get those walking papers, so to speak, at the end of the season. Some have gotten them already. So let's see how things play out for these teams. Let's see if some other teams can come up and actually surprise and decide to go in a different direction at head coach following this season. We just got to see, but that's the nature of the beast. And like I said before, Black Monday in the NFL is right around the corner. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.